morning and welcome to the first video in our new channel. Still in the process of being built up, but I hope you guys find it useful. For starters, I will do this short video about safely and easily getting some more juice out of your graphics card. And I will be using MSI Afterburner to, in a very simple, very easy way, squeeze a few more FPS out of your graphics card without risking any potential problems that might go with a bit more aggressive, also rather worthwhile, overclocking. For starters, just open up Google, Google for MSI Afterburner. You'll easily find it on their website, as you can see. You can just scroll down, and here it would be MSI Afterburner. Just download the regular version, no beta versions anyway. I already have it installed, so I'm not gonna download it. Anyway, just download it, install it, and you can get right on track with it. So this is what MSI Afterburner looks like. As a small disclaimer, anything overclocking related, especially if you start moving things like core voltage, power limit, that is a bit risky if you're not exactly sure what you're doing. And since this is a beginner's video, I'm not going to mess with that. In any case, as you can see, the core voltage and power limit, which are related to how much power your GPU draws from the PSU, are the core voltage in particular is disabled. You have to go into the advanced settings and enable it. This is a safety measure so that people don't accidentally destroy their graphics card. Anyway, and this goes both for GPU overclocking and any other sort of experimentation you do on your computer or your system. If you don't if you're not exactly sure what you're doing, and if you are not prepared for the possibility that something might actually get permanently damaged, like shorting out, overloaded, things like that. If you are not sure what you're doing, if you're not prepared for that, then don't touch it, research it better, because if you see people doing videos like I am right now, they usually have a pretty good idea what they're doing, and also they know that that can happen. So don't get any weird ideas and do weird stuff and then be surprised that things basically almost went up in flames and be like, damn it, that guy on that video, he made me screw up my motherboard, it's all your fault. This is a disclaimer for that, and for future videos as well, make sure you know what you're doing. Now, as I said, the core voltage and power limit are related to how much power your GPU draws from the power supply. The temperature limit is basically how hot your GPU can get before it starts being limited, so that it doesn't get even warmer and potentially damaged and dangerous. The core clock and memory clock are the speed related settings. It's what's going to make your GPU pump out more FPS when overclocked. That's because the cores will be working at a higher clock, producing better results. And that relates to core voltage, because if you feed it more power, it will be able to work faster. But as I was saying, there are safety issues with that, and you have to have a pretty good idea what you're doing to either get results, because if you do too little, you're not going to get any results, and if you do too much, you're going to damage the GPU and overload it, and that might cause permanent damage. Anyway, these are the two that we are going to be adjusting. The temperature limit at 80 is pretty reasonable. Most GPUs can safely go to the 80 something, 90, but to keep it safe and simple, we'll leave it at 80. The fan speed, pretty self-explanatory. You can leave it on auto or set it to an amount of your choosing. I will just leave it on auto as it was, because my GPU has pretty good airflow, since I am using a pretty unusual case, as you might see in other of my videos, which I'm kind of proud of. Anyway, going off track. If you are really pushing it, if you want to overclock a bit more severely and you know what you're doing with the voltage, you can set it to whatever high amount at the expense of extra noise from the fan spinning extra fast. But if you are just going to do a very mild overclock like me, I mean, look, GTX 960, it's not really worth overclocking much. It's not going to change massively anything. I just leave it on auto, and it's not going to overheat. Mine usually does not even get past the 60 something degrees, so that's more than fine. In any case, leave the fan on auto or not, it's up to you. Make sure to press apply when you are done, otherwise the changes are here but they are not being actually used. As you could see, I already had some settings in. I have reset them to default 00, no clock speed boost at all, so that you can see how the process goes. You can probably Google around, check what other people are getting on their overclocks on their cards beforehand, so you can have a big idea. But anyway, my opinion is that your best option is to slowly, bit by bit, increase the clock overclock by little bits and seeing how stable it is before increasing a bit more or not. Anyway, I have researched that for my particular graphics card, people were getting anywhere up to about 200-ish to 300 core overclocking. But this is very dependent, and I will explain this at the end of the video. That does not mean that you will get that. It's just so you have a vague idea. In any case, since I was getting those results in my research, 200 to 300, I will undershoot it by a little bit, and I will start with, let's say, 100, and then increase it 30 by 30 to see how far I can take it. So what you do is you click here and you type 100, you press enter, and you do the same thing at the clock, and then you press here apply. Now what do you have to do now? After you do this, you have to push your graphics card a little bit, and by a little bit I mean put it under max load, so that it will actually show if it's stable or not, if it's having problems or not, or crashing and whatnot. So what we will do is we will run some stress tests on it with some special software for that. I will be trying out Furmark. You can just Google for it. It's basically a stress test for a GPU in particular to make it work at 100%. Keep in mind that anything that you're going to be doing in terms of web browsing, normal programs, you will not ever push your graphics card this much. Even gaming usually will not push it this much unless you have a relatively older GPU that needs to work extra hard to keep up with modern games. You're not going to run into this level of stress on your GPU. So what it will do is it pushes it to the max. If the overclock is stable, it works fine. If not, it will crash, and you know that you've gone too far, and you can then go back on MSI Afterburner, and you can dial the settings slightly a bit, you know, underclock it a bit from where you were. So hit download. I also already have it downloaded, so I don't have to, and I will show you what to do in Furmark. So Furmark, this is looks very basic, I know. You just need to select your resolution, full screen or not, anti-aliasing or not, all that stuff. And what this will do is this will stress your GPU, as I said. It will make it render. Well, I should just let you see. It's probably simpler. Hit GPU stress test. This is a general warning. It can cause the problems can be caused by too high overclocking, insufficient power, problems with the cooler, all that. Anyway, it's a warning. Hit go, and this is about it. It's basically stressing your GPU by having to render all this stuff and all the little hairs and all that, all the stuff. You have information here up top, your current FPS on Furmark, of course. If you go play something, this looks deceptively simple. You know, if you actually go play a game, it's less demanding than this, unless you crank the settings all the way up to max, of course. So yeah, this is your settings here. They'll probably be higher in the games or whatever you do. This is the general information, the clock, the temperature. You also have the temperature down here, so you can keep an eye on it. The load, how much it's being used of your GPU power, the memory load and all that, power draw, fan speed, everything really. So you can keep an eye on the data. But the most important thing is, if you're beginning, those are just numbers usually. You know, if you don't know how to interpret them, you don't actually have to. Per se. What is important is that you leave this running for a good few minutes, let's say 5 to 10 minutes at least, and that you keep an eye on the temperature to see how hot it gets, to keep an eye on the fan speed, to see if the fan is actually going faster to cool the increased temperature, because it will run a bit faster than usual if it's overclocked. And what you have to do mostly is keep an eye on an image, see if you find anything weird, like black spots, anomalies, artifacts, distortions in the image, like screen tearing, for example, and that would be like lines, uh, usually green or black or red or whatever, just lines showing up and blinking across the screen, or the program crashing completely. That's what you have to keep an eye on, because that usually means that you have pushed the overclock too far for your voltage. So since we're not going to touch the voltage, what that means is that you have to reduce the overclock a bit until it's actually stable. And if it's stable under this load, which is basically the maximum your graphics card can put out, it's also going to be stable on anything else you use, gaming, programs, whatever. So the goal is to have it stable on firmark, and that means that you can keep it as it is, and it will be stable in anything you do. So this overclock is fine. You don't see any artifacts, any problems with the image. That means we have not pushed it too far, so we are going to well, normally you would keep watching for a while longer, but I already know it's fine because I've already done it before the video. So I'm going to close firmark, just the screen, and I will go back to MSI Afterburner. Here you can increase your overclock by, let's say, 20 to 30 at a time, and then you will run firmark again. You will check if it's fine again. If it's fine, you are going to increase it a bit more until you start having firmware crashing or those artifacts I mentioned on the screen. And when you get to that point, what you will do is you will decrease not both clock speeds, you'll decrease one. For example, you'll decrease the core clock, which is usually the lower value that you can overclock. You'll decrease the core clock a bit until it's stable. And at that point, you know that the core clock is stable, that it's not causing problems, you leave it as it is. And then you go to the memory clock and you increase it a little bit until it also starts giving you issues. And then you decrease, if it does start giving you issues, you roll it back to whatever value you had before. Let's say you get the core clock to 200, your firmware starts having issues. You roll it back to 180. Test it again, it's fine. You go to the memory clock then, and you start increasing it again. Let's say that you make it to 200 and it starts giving you issues as well. Roll it back to 180, run firmware, it's fine, you keep it, that's your highest overclock that you can get. You save it to a profile, and you are done with a stable overclock. Hopefully you'll be able to have squeezed a few extra FPS, and as I said before, let's dive a little bit further into what that means, that you are going to research the values of how much people actually achieve with your particular card and model, and why you might not be able to hit those values. That's because not every graphics card, even if it's the exact same model, is the same. If you've been researching overclocking, you might have heard the term silicon lottery. That means that not every graphics card is made with the same quality of silicon in it. That depends on a lot of things, but generally what it does mean is that some with higher quality silicon will be able to hit higher overclocks without a problem, while others might struggle and only reach lower levels of overclocking. Now, it's difficult for the general user to know which of the two you're gonna get, but basically a lot of manufacturers, they pre-test their cards while they're in production, and the higher quality silicon ones, they go for the higher end models. That will be the ones that are already overclocked from the factory, like usually the Asus ones, the Republic of Gamers. Anything that says factory overclock, OC edition, that sort of stuff, that is usually the higher quality. And even within those, there's always the better and the worse ones. And there's absolutely no way that you can tell which is which just by looking at them or looking at the article specifications. It's a bit of a gamble. That means that the person that you saw posting online that they reached the plus 300 megahertz core clock overclock, that might have been a very lucky person that got one, and who knows, maybe you're one of the unlucky ones that got a car that will only reach plus 100. Or maybe you're even luckier than that person that and you're gonna reach 350 or something. That's why you test it by small increments until you actually reach a point where you have issues, because that basically tells you that's the cap for your card. You can't get further than that without starting to go deeper into the issue of the core voltage. But again, this is a beginner video for a relatively risk-free overclock, so I'm not going to go into that and give people more than they can chew, because if you're looking for a beginner video, it stands to reason that you don't you are not ready to go into that, or if you are ready to go into that, then you probably don't need my explanation because you know just as much as me, and that's about it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed your video. I hope that you enjoy also the extra few FPS that you're gonna drag out of your card. And if anyone has any questions, any suggestions for other videos or for this one, I am open to any suggestions and all. Like I said, I am just starting this journey trying to build a community in the channel. So I'm gonna do my best to have a variety of content. And I, again, am completely open to suggestions of how you guys want me to, in what direction you guys want me to move, what sort of content you guys want, what are the questions that you have, what do you think would be useful for people that are kind of like me, beginning their journey on the world of overclock. Because, well, I don't have, well, never mind, I'm going to do an introductory video. It will probably be up by the time you watch this, and you will know my background and my knowledge and all of that stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to help us expand our community. And I will see you guys next video. Have fun!